I would love to hear about like your relationship with your favorite gaffers, how you guys vibe, and like how you choose the different gaffers that you work with based on the spots that you're shooting. Just because the DP and gaffer relationship is so important, just as much as like the director and the DP's relationship is super important. Can you talk about that?
That is a good question.
Like Bill being a wacky guy and having all these gags, like that was so perfect for the job that we did.
Yeah. I'm not a very experienced DP, like in the bigger picture of things.
He
so
keeps downplaying himself. Stop.
It's kind of wild.
Well,
I mean,
I don't know.
You guys, when you look up his work, you're going to be like, what?
From my limited time on this planet, I feel like the gaffers that I've enjoyed working with the most are like the ones that you give. It's when you give them enough space to work, and you're not kind of talking about necessarily particular lamps, which I again used to do a lot of when I was first starting out, being like, you know, maybe you like a certain lamp, and that's okay, but I used to sort of think that I used to come along with this completely detailed plan of like, and you know, maybe the distro could go off that way, and like all this stuff, and ultimately it's more about like talking about the shape of the light and like the effect and the references you have in your mind and how you want it to feel, and then they can totally look after all that aspect for you.
Right.
And so maybe Bill will come back with a door.
Right.
Did you come in with that plan because you thought that's what DPs did, or because you thought you had a really good grasp about what lighting was? Because I know you said you came up as an AC, like that's
they're very different.
Yeah,
very different.
Very different. Yeah, much more. Camera department can be quite binary. There's like a sort of yes, wrong, and right way to do things, and this lens will get you that trick shot, and you know, lenses may be an exception, but there's a lot of like, oh, if you want that, then follow this flow diagram, then that should be the right tool for the job. Whereas lighting, everything's got a nickname to begin with. It's not even called what it's called. And like lighting's much more subjective, and it's all outside the frame lines, right? So it doesn't. Right. There's lots of the lamp itself is not as important.
No one needs to know what's off camera.
Yeah,
here.
exactly.
But I think what Bert maybe was asking was like, when you were a new DP, did you feel like you had to like speak to a gaffer like, I'm thinking this light here and this and.
It's almost like it's like proving that you know that you should be in your position.
Yeah. I definitely did used to do a bit of that. Yeah.
It's like the opposite of what you're doing right now.
Yeah, I think I try and be more big picture about it, and you know, even just referencing real life, like like a nice hotel that like has a nice lighting to it. Just take a photo of that and just being like, maybe this is an interesting like way that it could be done, and referencing paintings, all that stuff. Like I used to come in with these floor plans, and I still think I try and do that once you get closer to it, but start the conversation really big and let them do their thing, you know, because
let them cook.
Let them cook, baby.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they're there for a reason, right?
Yeah. So you approach your gaffer, maybe you might have like photos, like visual, like inspirations. You're like, this is kind of the feel, like the emotion that I'm going for. And then as you get closer, you probably have a plan. It's like, okay, we know where our fixtures are gonna go, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Nice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think it's okay to be. I enjoy like quite a technical emphasis to my work. Like lots. I often get booked for motion control stuff or like tricky little fun music videos, and I do like being specific with particular, you know, maybe it's the main light. I don't like saying key light too much because it shouldn't really be like that, but if you know, if it is a key light, you know, that particular bit, you know, maybe you know, want that definitely to be tungsten, and I do love this light with this effect, and you know, this particular Hampshire or whatever, but otherwise it's like nice to be surprised, and it's a good way to keep on top of kit, which is always changing, especially LEDs. And
if you never let them try something new, you're going to be using the same Ari kit from 1980.
Yeah, I mean, I already feel like a grandpa for like referencing old LED things. They're like, God, that thing's dead. This has to be in a museum, grandpa.
S60, well, nobody uses those anymore.
I'm curious, why don't you like to say key light?
Is it lightest?
Yeah, I mean, it's like a 3-point lighting thing that maybe it doesn't work like that. You know, maybe it's more like, I don't know.
You think lighting is more open? Lighting is more open to interpretation then.
Yeah, it's like you're sort of then you're into like lighting the human, not the room as much. If you're like, okay, this is the sort of
I see.
You know, maybe it's more like little local pools of light, and it's all scattered around, and that window works as well as that corner of the room. And I don't know.
Because you
It's,
feel like
I feel it's kind of the way you'd like. Sorry. Go on.
I was just gonna ask it because you feel like key light more so refers to like lighting a person rather than
Maybe.
if it's an environment. Would we really say key light?
Right.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe I'm gonna jump into this way too soon, but you talked about one of the projects that you were second unit on was "Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared." And you kind of talked about how the whole world is just imaginary. Like that's what we do in film. We build something that doesn't exist. So it's like maybe there is a light here that makes absolutely no sense. Let's just run with it. You know, is that kind of like what you're saying? It's like we are building a world. Just build it, and if it looks good, then we did our job. You know, it's
Yeah. I mean, that show is very. It's almost like a comic book. It's like sort of perfectly lit, inverted commas, and everything's got its own little like splash of like a little tickle on it, and it's not all motivated. I think that's fair to say. The main unit DP is Ed Tucker, who's the guy who shot almost every episode of the original YouTube series. And it's got a brilliant look, that show, as like, as I'm sure you know. And that's all like, there was more like, it's kind of like having fun with it. It's quite theatrical. It's a bit like, it'd be a more interesting, like, spooky image if this just had a weird, like, glow to it. And it's like all that kind of stuff. And it looks impossible because everything, like the clock on the wall has a, like, little Source 4 on it, and, like, everything. It just all
So
combines
fun.
to...
Well, and you said it was like a lot of the set is like felt, so it absorbs light a different way than like a matte
Totally.
wall. You know, it's like
Or
that's
even people.
like who lives in a felt world? So it's
Yeah.
like you got to light it differently. You know, it's like if you're working with a puppet or
Yeah.
anything. You know, it's
That's
Those
so
things
cool.
absorb light so much. He's really good at lighting felt. He's an expert. If you need
that's a tough skill to learn.
Yeah.
He's the felt guy.
Yeah.
They just soak up light. You know, reflectivity is half of it, isn't it?
Right.
And like, those puppets are hard to light. You just need to get the lights a little bit closer and throw a bit more at it than you're used to. And it wasn't like big lamps, but it's just slightly different way of doing it. It doesn't wrap around as much. You know,
Right.
just gets soaked up. So you like a lot more bounces and reflections and stuff.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I really want a gaffer or a DP to light my apartment. Like, just tell me where to put vibey lamps, because I feel like they just think about placing lights in places that make things pop, whereas I don't think that way
Yeah.
environmentally. Like, how sick would our apartments look like if...
Well, I know a few people that like you
Do
don't.
that?
Well, no, not that specifically, but like you don't turn on the big light, and when they're talking about the big
Totally.
light, it's the one light in the ceiling of the
Right.
center of the room. That light, don't fucking touch that light.
Right,
you
right,
know,
right.
it's like I want this desk lamp on. I want
Yes.
this. It's a nice, softer, warm
Yeah.
glow kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Pools of
I
light.
know a few people that are like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like production designers that build lighting into their sets, or at least consider like where, you know, that collaboration between a DP and production design is so important. And when you get production designers who really, really think about the lighting, they almost could do the job for you, you know, like and you can always add stuff in a close up or put a bit more light through the windows. But if they put the window in there, if you discuss where the window's going to go, all this stuff, like it's just a dream to work with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll
I feel like
agree with
maybe
you.
need a production designer to
Yeah.
light the house more than a
I'll
DP.
agree with you until they're like, we want a lamp right here, and we don't want to see any cords. You're like, okay, cool.